Yeah, hi there. My name's Nick Phillips. I'm a recovered disordered gambler. I want to thank Donna and the team again for giving me this platform to discuss a few things gamble related again. As you're aware, if you follow my POV, I was on there a couple of days ago with my friend and colleague Tony Franklin talking about the gambling review. This particular one, and I've been asked to share this because obviously one part of gambling which doesn't get highlighted enough is some of the actions that come off the back of some of the things you're prepared to do to fulfill the addiction. And stealing and crime is very much go hand in hand, I think, with the addiction. And I think the power of the addiction makes good people make bad decisions fundamentally, I think, in many ways. I think it really changes your personality and who you are. And the more you get, the more deeper you get into the addiction, the more manipulative, the lies increase, the deception, the hiding. And it's a really, I look back on my behaviours and and some of the things I've done now. I've been in recovery now for just over 3 years. I said announced on Twitter yesterday. Yesterday was the 3-year anniversary since I attempted suicide. And just to reflect on that, I mean, I was very determined to end my life, and fortunately, because of the weather and because I think it wasn't my time to go, I got found by a man walking his dog, who actually talked me down, and hence why I do what I do. I think since then I've really embraced the recovery. This is why I try and highlight the changes that are needed with gambling, highlight the stigma, try to destigmatize the addiction, and do what I do on here. But just going back to some of the stuff that we do, and this is for me coming off quite true high profile cases that have happened in the last couple of years. I attended Ben Jones's sentencing up in Nottingham. Ben had stolen some money from his employer over the years, and he had a lovely family, wife and children, and unfortunately, he said he got a custodial sentence, and he's actually due to come out on tag in January, which is great. I've been writing to him while he's had his time in prison. And obviously then the other one is obviously Tom Eaton, who again has just started a custodial sentence for stealing from his employer. And the reason why I come on here and talk about this today is, and I'm going to share obviously a little bit of what happened with me, because I was very lucky not to get a custodial. So I'll share what happened with me, and then obviously I'll just maybe highlight then the failings in the judicial system that I think also needs looking at. So I started going to Gamblers Anonymous roughly about 13 years ago, actually. And the GA program was working for me in many ways. And in other ways it wasn't. I mean, I always, for some reason, I still had a few triggers. Life events kicked in, and those life events or triggers would cause me to have a relapse. At the time of me relapsing, one of my last ones, which is I think it's about 7 years ago now, I'd separated from my wife due to the gambling addiction, and most of my working life I've been involved in transport. I've been a truck driver or a coach driver, and it was January, and I think it's roughly 2013, I think, if I remember. And funny enough, my mother was a chair lady or chairperson of our local social club, and they'd recently suspended actually their steward. It was an ex-Royal British Legion, it was, but it was now a private members club, and they suspended their manager, actually for theft, actually, and what they were looking for was a temporary steward to come in. And I'd never done any bar work, but I was always interested in doing the different roles. So, cut long story short, I took on a role of temporary steward. So I was the bar manager, and I'd been in recovery by then a couple of years, so I was still going to GA. I was living with my mother at the time, and I'd been going about 2 years where I ended at a bet, so I was in a really good place. And I remember the week starting the job, and a couple of friends were talking to me saying, not give sure about this job now because you're doing really well, but first and foremost, you're handling money. So all the roles I had previously, I was just getting paid, so I get my money paid into the bank, and then and I obviously just have that way. But now I had a responsible job. I was banking the money. I was cashing at the end of the night on the shifts I was working. So a lot of responsibility, and for staff as well. I had about 6 or 7 staff working under me. I started off really well, but there was always whisperings of money going missing, and I got warned that just be careful. There was certain individuals within the club who were, I think, manipulating money, and my mother wasn't involved in the money side, even though she was like the chairperson. It was just she'd never got involved with the money side, but they had a treasurer and stuff there. But so roughly about 2 months in, there was we were doing a lot of banking and lots of stuff going on, and money was missing. It wasn't tallying up, and it was making me really nervous. And what ended up happening was I relapsed. So what I started doing was I started spending my money, my wages on gambling again. I'd start going down to local bookies and just spending my own money. And it's weird how this psychological process of gambling works, because it's such a manipulative addiction, because your mind is so powerful in how you interpret it. And I started gambling again, obviously just with my own money. And I thought to myself, well, if I can spend 50 quid of my own money and win a couple of £100, and I can put the money back in that's missing, because people knew I was a recovered gambler. So I thought to myself, if money's gone missing, I'm the first person they're going to come to. And even though I knew it wasn't me, I had this huge cloud over me and this huge pressure on my shoulders, thinking I'm gonna have this finger pointed at me. And obviously then, because of the way the addiction works and the way my mind works, the gambling just got out of control. And at one point then I started borrowing, and this is the way it is. I think when people get convictions for stealing, I think one of the key things that people don't understand is that they don't initially go out to steal. Your mind goes into overdrive and you start thinking, I'm going to borrow that money now. I'm going to take £100 there, and I'm going to win my money back, and I'm going to put that £100 back. So it's not a case of I'm going to steal that £100 for me and benefit it by doing something else. Because when you look at people who have had the convictions for theft and are maybe going to prison, when you look at where they are and what the effects have on their family, they've got nothing. There's no source of wealth. There's no rewards from it. They haven't got big expensive houses and flash cars and have had loads of holidays. These people are financially bankrupt. Families lose their homes. They've got no money. In the 2 cases I talk about now, Ben's wife, they lost a family home. Becky had to take her kids into family accommodation and was going to stay with her parents, her father and her mother. And it's going to be the same with Tom. Tom's wife and kids are probably struggling to maintain staying in their homes. So there's no financial benefits from when people get convicted for these offences. And so when he was stealing this money or borrowing, he said, you've got that mindset, you're always borrowing the money. You're always even when it gets higher and higher. And I was getting myself deeper and deeper. And the more you were borrowing to think you would win, the more you're having to pay back. And I was writing on this money down, going like, I've now borrowed 200, 400. When it started getting into thousands, I thought, well, I'm in trouble. And it came to a head on one particular Thursday, and I was due to bank the following day, and I had all the takings for the week. And by now, I was about £6,000 taken from the safe. And I literally thought, that's not part of my French, but you shit or bust. I thought to myself, I'm going to take all the money I can in notes and pound coins out of the safe on a Thursday and gamble it to try and win back that £6,000. Just a huge, heavy punt, and I was into my horse racing. And again, manipulation of the mind. You think to yourself, I convinced I was a professional football tipster, professional horse tipster. I could study the form, and I knew what horse was going to win. So you're not at the end of the day. It's down to luck. I mean, and for all the will in the world, you can follow a particular sport and be really knowledgeable about it. but not to the point where you think you are a professional tipster. But that's the psychology around it all, especially when you're a sports bettor. And I took this money and I went to the local bookies, and I did a couple of huge substantial bets. One of them came in, but wasn't enough to pay it back. Cut a long story short, I lost all the money that particular day. The safe was empty. I'm now 7-8 grand in debt. And I went home. I wrote 2 letters, one to my mum, because she was chairperson, one to the committee. And I took them in on Friday morning, just held my hands up. I can still to this day, the pain on my face, upset I called my mother. I thought I was giving my mother a heart attack because she put trust in me. And it was really difficult. It was really much worse because of the damage it caused my mother. She was going to resign because of the shame of what her son had done. And yeah, I took the 2 letters in. So basically, handed myself in. The letters then were handed to the police, and I just basically got interviewed by the police and said, yeah, I said I got a gambling addiction. I've had a relapse. And it was really difficult to explain the mitigating circumstances for me. It was, and again, just comparing, I'll use Ben's case a little bit because I was there for the sentencing and listening to the judge and the way they spoke. And there's very little taken into mitigation, really, in terms of sentencing. But for me, I was very fortunate because, and this is where the sentencing guidelines are really confusing. Well, not confusing, it's done purely on monetary value. So you are sentenced based on how much money you've taken. So mine was just over £8,000. So I came in with the guidelines of being able to be, and because of the fact that I held my hands up and admitted the guilt, I got a 12-month suspended sentence, and I got community hours, and I was told to pay the money back to the club, which over a period of 18 months to 2 years, I did. And like I said, I'm glad that I was able to pay the money back. So I was very fortunate in many ways that I avoided a custodial sentence. But when I look at cases like Ben's and Tom's, which were obviously substantially more and over a longer period of time, I think when we talk about the gambling review here, one of the biggest concerns I've got, and I think it's a space I'm definitely going to look to work in because I've got lived experience of it, is the judicial system needs a real review of how they look into convicting and how they deal with these cases of criminality within gambling. Because the first point, like I said, is already firstly said, is one is there's no financial gain. Most of these people have not got no money at all. There's got nothing to show for their thing. They've gambled, they've lost it, they've been caught. So there's no gain there, right? The other thing is, sentencing guidelines shouldn't be done just based on the monetary value. Do you mean? Yes, people, I'm not condoning people stealing money, and people should get punished, but there's a word we use in a system which is, again, for other offences that isn't working, and that's rehabilitation. There's nothing to gain from putting people in prison for these offences because they have zero chance of rehabilitation. Just talking to Ben, and I wrote to Ben, and just speaking to his wife Becky, when they're in prison, they get exposed to poker because they're in prison with the other inmates, and they got to fill their time. So there's a lot of gambling going on inside. There's nobody coming in to support them to talk about rehabilitation, whether it's people with lived experience or probation counsellors or anything like that. So these people are going in and are coming out, and they've nothing's changed. And I think that's something we've really got to look at. And in Tom's case, and just flipping it now back to, this is all talking about the individual. If you look at Ben's case and Tom's case, and his failings, right, from other people in this, which are not getting punished for. First things first is that one of the things that are meant to be upheld by the Gambling Commission in law is anti-money laundering laws, AML laws, and sources of wealth. It's fundamental. Those are the two key things that are in place that are meant to be upheld by the Gambling Commission. And in these cases, they're not. It's been highlighted already. It was very much further down the line with Ben and with Tom that the operators took a long time to try and ask those questions where the source of wealth. They've been going years gambling thousands of pounds before those questions were asked. So there's failings from the operator, right? Then that money is stolen, and so what you're finding is that some of these operators are forced, and you're finding this out on the day of sentencing, Tom's sentencing and Ben's sentencing. And I'll keep using these two cases because I'm aware of them. And there's probably loads of people out there who are right now in prison for gambling convictions. But these two in particular, I know on the day that we're finding out that the operators have paid the money back to the people these individuals stolen from, and the companies they've had. So they're admitting their failings, but yet there's nobody from the gambling industry. There's nobody from the Gambling Commission or in that dock, and that's what needs to change. It's not the only person. It's not the individual who should be on trial there. The operator should be on trial, and whether that's an individual or the company themselves, then that needs to be looked at. And there's so much scope for this review. We don't know. There's lots of stuff that we'd like to get in place, but I think moving forward, what we're going to have to do, we need to do, is get people with lived experience, talking to people in the justice system, and we need to look at the laws and how the sentencings are given, because nobody gains if the companies are getting their money back, right? I think it doesn't matter how much you steal. I don't care if it's £1 or £1 million. I think rehabilitation is the key to this. And what they should be looking to do is going, right, okay, you've got a conviction, you're going to be convicted for theft, you've stolen money, it is fundamentally wrong. But there are lots of other factors in place here. You've been failed by an operator who has enticed you, has given you offers, you're spending money, stolen money, which they have taken a long time to pin down and find out. The Gambling Commission know about it, and what they do is they give fines to that operator, and that doesn't go far for getting. When we talk about regulatory fines, it's like some of the fines that have been dished out in the last 12 to 18 months. It's like me giving you a fiver, taking a fiver out of my back pocket and giving it to you. It's a walk in the park for these operators, especially some of the big ones, because they make such huge profits that it's nothing. It's peanuts to them to get these fines, and they'll take the fine and go in, okay, they get a little bit of bad PR from it. Comes up in the press, this operator's failed, and the GC go, there's your fine, and then people move on, and they've had a little slap on the wrist. And again, that doesn't go far enough. What you need to start doing now is suspending licenses, taking licenses off them. Do you mean? And don't be too scared. You've got the big 5 or 6 operators out there. Don't be too scared to take licenses off them. It needs more than just fines. So really speaking, I think, like you said, there's people in prison now who shouldn't be there, and I'm lucky that I didn't end up there myself. I'm hoping, like you said, I've got a friend of mine who works in the prison service, and I'm hoping to do some stuff moving forward. And again, he's an ex-prison officer, but he's now working in the education system within the prison service. And he's kind of said he's really passionate about rehabilitation. And if at the moment these people are getting sentenced, then I think what the very minimum we should be doing is going in, or people being able to go in and talk to these people and say to them, okay, this has happened, but we want to support you, and we want to help rehabilitate you. So when you come out of prison, that there's support there. We need to get you back into housing, because you may have lost your marriage, or you might have no family support, and we need to support these people coming out, because all you're going to get is people reoffending, isn't it? When you look at the drink and drugs, I mean, people tend to reoffending, and there's no rehabilitation in this country is really poor on all aspects, I think. But I think particularly because we're talking about gambling, I think it's something that I find it really disconcerting. I listened to the judge I went to Nottingham Crown Court, and I sat there listening to the judge summing up when he sentenced Ben, and I could tell the lack of knowledge, the ignorance around it. He mentioned some things about goodwill, and he attempted some therapy and blah blah blah. But the judges need to. I mean, I know the judges got to follow what's in the statutory law, and the statutory law says they've got a sentence based on monetary value, but that needs ripping up and looking at. I think you've got to look at this now and going, right, what is the gain? Who is gaining from sending this person to prison for this offence? Nobody. Taxpayer. It's a huge cost to the taxpayer. It's better to keep them out of prison. Yeah, potentially on tag, community hours. A lot of these people are good people who have just got caught up in a really bad gambling addiction, who've been, again, because of the amount of money they got, they tend to be VIP scheme customers. They have been preyed on by the industry. So they're victims themselves. They're not, and so we need to look at that and say, when you're sentencing and you're looking at the thing, you've got to bring the whole thing into the table. Going, like, there's been failings from government, there's failings from the industry and this particular operator, there's a failing from the Gambling Commission, who should have intervened and looked at this case sooner before. And this is what happened with Tom. The Gambling Commission were prepared to look at this case and support him and use the evidence against the operator in that particular case. And so when you look at all these other failings, you should be able to say, okay, there's been failings from him, he's stolen his money. There's been failings, he's been let down by other people and other organisations. So what we're looking at here is put him into a rehabilitation program for a year, send him out into the community, delivering or going through therapy, go to your NHS gambling clinics where you can get treated properly, type of thing. You mean? And that's what you look at. And then these people are not overcrowded in the prison system. They're doing a bit of good. They're raising awareness because they are generally, like I said, they are good people, and they do feel bad about the stuff they've done. Again, I feel sorry for Nicole now. Nicole is down in Kent. She's just been sentenced, and she's waiting until February for the sentencing, but she's pretty much been told there's going to be custodial. And again, what is the gain from sending that woman to prison? Okay, when you look at her particular case, it's heartbreaking to see there's mistakes being made and there's been failings from other people. And she's a single mum. Her son now is going to have to go and live with his dad, and she's going to likely end up in prison, and there's nobody to gain from that. So for me, like I said, I don't know whether part of the scope for the review is going to look into this, but definitely moving forward, I really hope that there's some this kind of stuff is looked into, so we can stop sending these people who are victims as well themselves from going to prison. So, thank you.